brain fog, the forgetfulness, the inability to remember facts and faces sometimes. Have you ever stared at your best friend and gone, I know you, but I can't remember your name. I know everything about you, but I can't remember your name. It interferes with our productivity and our relationships. And a lot of times it can make us feel like we're broken somehow or we're a failure. And when women hit midlife or during their monthly cycle, those feelings can really be exacerbated because, surprise, surprise, your brains, not your ovaries, control your hormones. And all of this can be terrifying. Do you feel like maybe you're looking perhaps at early on dementia? That was my story. So, what can you do to get your brain and your life back? Hello, my name is Karen Miner Hurd, founder of WomanWize, and we are on a mission to equip women to activate and unleash their natural skills and talents to prosper their families and impact their world. We do that as wellness entrepreneurs in partnership with one of the leading wellness companies because health is foundation to life. You all know when we don't feel well, just lots of things don't happen. So I'm so glad you've decided to spend a few minutes with me in this episode of Divine Healthy Living. You will learn tips and hacks that are going to help you create a lifestyle that you can live with because if wellness isn't sustainable, we're not going to do it and have a better relationship with God, family, and yourself. And we're going to be talking about brain health and something really surprising, but at the end of it, you're going to go, duh, makes so much sense. Brain health and chiropractic today. So make sure that you share this with your friends. If you are on YouTube or Rumble, hit that subscribe and those notifications and make sure that you share this. This is going to be incredible. We want to inspire and encourage you to take charge of your health and your family's health. No matter what's going on, you can move your health forward. You were created by God to be healthy. And joining us today on Divine Healthy Living is my friend Dr. Alexis Wien of Alexis Wien Chiropractic in Salt Lake City, Utah. Welcome, Dr. Wine. It's so great to have you.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me, Karen. I'm really pumped to be here.
Yeah, it's exciting. So tell me a little bit about your background. And we are going to be talking specifically about brain health and chiropractic because a lot of people think chiropractic is what?
I think it's just for like neck pain and back pain when really there is so much more. It's like if you were to have a Ferrari and you just drive around the block instead of taking it around the racetrack, It's like,
Taking what it was really meant for.
yeah, exactly.
That's right. So we talk
Um,
a lot about being in alignment on this show. So that makes absolute sense. How did you get into chiropractic? Because you come from a different perspective.
yes. So it's definitely, this is a common theme in chiropractic where people feel like chiropractic chose them because usually it's not one of those obvious jobs that people, are 5 years old being like, I want to be a chiropractor. But
Mhm.
so my journey to it was pretty interesting. I actually grew up with my dad as a medical doctor. So I grew up in a pretty medical household and
Mhm.
there's nothing innately wrong with that, but it was just my paradigm of the world was more through like traditional medicine, right? But then as I got into college and I studied at Texas A&M, and I studied kinesiology and animal science as well. I was taking some physiology classes and just for the first time getting a really deep understanding of how the body actually works and specifically like how meds interact with our body. And
Yeah.
it made me realize like, oh, if we take this med, it's altering this chemical pathway, which then can alter this chemical pathway. And then you need another med to regulate that alteration. And I'm like, it never ends. And I'm like, what's the point? Not,
Right.
and I'm not demonizing meds. There's definitely a time and place for
No,
them.
but you do get into a place where you're medicating the medication.
Yeah, and I was much more interested in figuring out, well, what is the root of this issue? Why is this happening in the first place? And that's what really intrigued me. And then as I was going through college, I had a lot of back pain and back discomfort, and I
Mm.
was thinking about it all the time. And I'm like, man, I'm in my 20s. Like, what is going on? And I started seeing a chiropractor regularly for the first time because my dad actually told me to go see one, which is really cool. He's super awesome. And then I got under chiropractic care for the first time and I was just amazed at how differently I felt, how much more energy I had, how my brain felt like it was less bogged down. And I felt like I could actually use energy towards what I wanted to do as opposed to like thinking about my pain and
Mhm.
discomfort all the time. And so that really inspired me to learn more about chiropractic. And it was at a time in my life where I was looking to make a change in what I was studying in college. And I went and toured the campus that I ended up studying at, which is called Parker, and that's in Dallas. And I just got a gut feeling that that was where I was supposed to be.
Mhm.
And then ever since then, I've just been really blessed to learn more and more about what chiropractic does. Because when I first started, I really did think it was just a non-invasive way to get people out of pain, which that alone is very powerful.
Sure.
But then I learned that it could do so much more, and that's been really, really rewarding to see. Not only as a student of chiropractic, but also just in practice with how it can help people.
Right, 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 and I think a lot of people pain drives us to find all kinds of solutions, right? That's part of the
Mhm.
purpose of pain, and when you can
Yes.
solve that problem, it's fantastic. But let me ask you, so how essentially for our audience that does not know, I've been a chiropractor since I was probably 15. I went to chiropractic for a lot of things, and in fact, I'm partnered with a company called Shackley, and Dr. Shackley was a chiropractor and a
Mhm.
naturopath, which is why the products are formulated the way they are to work alongside in alignment, because that's a key word, right, in chiropractic, with the body. So then I found out that people were taking their kids to chiropractic for like ear infections. People were going for
Mhm.
all kinds of things outside of neck, back pain. So talk to me a little bit about just generally what can somebody look forward to when they go to a chiropractor?
When you go to a chiropractor, it's a good sign if they're going to do an exam with you on that first day, as opposed to you just coming in, getting popped, and being like, I don't really know what just happened. That's
Mhm.
what I call Advil chiropractic, which, to each their own, but you just kind of got popped and you might feel a little better, but you don't really understand what they did, what happened. And you're just like, well, I guess that was cool. But if your chiropractor does an exam with you, what they're really wanting to do is to figure out where your body is functioning well and where it's not functioning well. And they're actually going to be more of a chiropractic doctor for you. And so, because you want your doctor in any profession to take a look at the objective findings and see what's going on with you, listen to why you're there, and then create a strategy to get you to whatever health goals you have for yourself, right? And so
Yeah.
look for that in a chiropractor. So that way they can actually look at you specifically as an individual and then come up with a plan for you. So
It's so
once
interesting that you called it though, just real quick, Advil
Mhm.
Chiropractic, which I love that, by the way, because that's actually a pharmaceutical medical model. I've got a problem. I'm going to take care of the symptom. And chiropractic is really, and you said it a moment ago, whole body, whole person.
Exactly. That's one thing I love about it is it takes a whole body approach and we're not focusing on just the area of pain. Because oftentimes there are so many things that are maybe not even close to the area of pain that are contributing to why your body is signaling for you to pay attention to it. And so what you can look forward to as a human being under chiropractic care for the first time, as opposed to just a one-off adjustment, that regulation that's going to start to happen in your body in terms of your nervous system function, which why is that important? Because your nervous system controls everything in your
Mm,
body. And so if it's off and it's, detecting threats everywhere or it's under a lot of pain and stress, like you just won't be functioning as well because your body can't talk to itself the way it's designed to. You can look forward to sleeping better, having better emotional regulation, having less pain, better mobility. A lot of times I see people get better digestion. That's a big one too. Why is that? And again, it's related to the nervous system because your nerves, your brain, your nerves, they control everything in your body.
well, let's
Uh,
talk since you mentioned gut. I'm going to just kind of jump in here like I
mhm,
just did. And there's something that a lot of people don't know about. When I first heard about this, it was like 10 years ago. It was gut as second brain. It was about
mhm.
10, 15 years ago. We were talking about it, but it's the vagus nerve. Can you just spend a minute or so? I know we could, there are seminars and webinar and there are
Yeah,
whole like conferences about the vagus nerve. But for a lot of people might just have been hearing about that and not really
sure.
understand. You just talked about communication within the body. So give us a little
Yeah,
bit of a lowdown on the vagus nerve.
totally. It's something I do pretty regularly in practice. So I think I could keep it short and sweet. Vagus nerve is a huge nerve. There's actually two, but they refer to it as one. They come out of your brainstem and go all the way down to your internal organs, almost all of them, except for like the last third or two of your colon, so your large intestine. Otherwise,
Wow.
it connects to everything in your
Wow.
digestive tract, your heart. And so it's what's called a primary parasympathetic nerve. So, like, what does that mean? You've probably heard of rest and digest and fight or flight mode. So,
Yeah.
your fight or flight mode is what's called your sympathetic nervous system. Simply put, it's where it's like, oh, there's something stressful happening. Your body revs up to prepare for that. It's necessary, but we also don't want to live there, right?
Right.
It's kind of like the gas pedal and the brake of your body. If you're constantly flooring it, like that's no way to live, right? So then your parasympathetic nervous system is your rest and digested healing mode.
Hmm.
And we need that to be able to recover from a stressful event, adapt to the stress, right? And your vagus nerve is a major nerve that's in charge of that system. And so there's an interesting balance between these two modes of our nervous system that we can't control. Like we don't have explicit conscious control over, but there's things that we can do in our body to help influence that nervous system to make sure we're regulating between the gas and brake and that we're not just constantly flooring it or that we're not so fatigued that we're just like the brake is on all the
Right.
time. So the vagus nerve again is just really important for regulation of that system.
Thank you. Yeah, that I think that's really, really key because when it comes to brain health as well, right? There's a lot of things you cannot specifically say, I will my frontal lobe to do this. It doesn't, but you can do a lot of supports, with that. So chiropractic can help the body communicate better within itself. So if there's an area the body's communicating properly, I'm going to use allergies as an example. If you've got allergies, part of what's going on with allergies is tree pollen. Let's use that. Is
Yeah.
not intrinsically damaging to your body. It should be no big deal. But the reason why people have an allergic reaction to tree pollen, for those who are allergic, is because the part of the immune system that sends out a warning there's a pathogen, deal with it, is super alerted, and the part, I guess I'm just use your analogy of the brakes, the checks and balances that say, yeah, no, it's a tree pollen, no big deal, send it to the colon, get rid of it. They just like go on vacation. And so the
Yeah.
body is not giving the immune system the proper information. And so it's completely dysregulated. So, guys, that's one reason why communication within your body is key. And chiropractic helps those lines and that static go away. So, all right. So, we're talking about the vagus nerve and how that works and the communication within the brain. And I'd like to, why do people take their kids to a chiropractor? For some people, like getting a newborn baby adjusted is like the freakiest thing in the world. And other people, it's like the first thing they do. Some of them, I know people like almost on the way home from the hospital, that child is getting adjusted. So we talked about the vagus nerve and the importance of the alignment and the communication within the body. What I'd like to delve into, if we can, for a bit, Alexis, is kids in chiropractic. For a lot of people, that is like the strangest idea in the world. I had my 4-month-old infant adjusted when he was constipated, and a little,
Mhm.
just a little bit of a gentle swing, and then boom, that diaper was full, and it was all cleared out. But I know people who will actually consider getting a chiropractic appointment for their newborn on the way home from the hospital. So can we talk just for a minute or so about kids and chiropractic? How can it help a child? They don't have back pain.
Right. Yes, this is a very common question. I actually worked as a pediatric chiropractor for a long time coming out of school. And so, yeah, the two misconceptions that I get the most are is they're like dummies or they don't have pain. Why would they need to be adjusted? And then two, are you going to pop a baby? And the answer to that is no, absolutely not. No, no truly trained, qualified chiropractor will ever do that. To adjust the baby, it's such gentle pressure. It's like the pressure you'd use to see if an avocado is ripe. And you're just holding at the segments where you're finding those misalignments until you feel it basically like melt under your hand. It's really cool. Why would a baby need to get adjusted? Think about birth. If you've ever seen a birth or even just know about birth, I mean, it's not an easy, like
It's a
rainbows and
marathon.
butterflies process. Yeah, it's a miracle. And the way a baby gets delivered, so we'll talk about vaginally first, then we'll talk about C-section. So vaginally, there's these the different muscles of the uterus. They push down and in, and they twist to try to get the baby in the right position. And
Right.
so that's a ton of compressive forces happening on a tiny child, right? Babies
Yeah.
are built for birth, but that doesn't mean that that's not a huge stressor on the baby coming out, especially
Sure.
if there are some complications there. And then also even just in utero, so like in the womb, they could have been in a funky position for a long time that has altered their posture and their biomechanics. And so there's definitely a high chance that babies have misalignments when they are born. And basically what I mean by misalignment is like a section of their spine that's not moving as well as the rest. And so it's stuck, it's not in its optimal range of motion. And so when that happens, it can put stress on the nervous system that's within the spine, right? So we have the spinal cord that's sending messages from the brain to body constantly and vice versa. And then the nerves coming out of that. So think about a baby who has colic. A lot of
Yeah, oh,
times,
yeah.
yeah, a lot of times it's because there's stress on the nervous system that is contributing to lack of function in the digestive system. So they're uncomfortable, they're gassy, like they're tight. They
They don't
babies
move. You
cry
can
for
just
no
sometimes
reason.
they won't move their heads quite like they could.
Yeah. Yeah, and that can be like something that's called torticollis, which is basically means they're stuck turned to one side. Usually one muscle is really fired up, and so then they don't have full range of motion. That's a huge reason to take your baby to a chiropractor because that often means they can't feed as well. Or it can lead into some developmental issues down the line in terms of like reaching milestones. They're not able to turn their head, they might have difficulty crawling and just doing all these other things that we want to see a baby be able to successfully do. Ideally, right? I mean, it's like obviously there's different situations for different people and you just try to do the best you can as a parent, but there's things we can do to help
Yeah.
them function even better. We want to be able to explore all those options. So symptom wise, like reasons you might want to take your baby to a chiropractor is again, if you're noticing they're really tight, stiff, if they're colicky, just like upset, like crying a lot. So obviously babies, it's normal for them to cry, but like you'll know as a parent if they're just crying.
Babies are supposed to be happy.
Mhm. And so if they're just like really upset and like they just don't feel relaxed,
Mhm.
that's a big sign that there's a lot of tension or extra stress in their body that a
And
chiropractor
sometimes
can help
you
them
sometimes
with.
even see babies that sometimes aren't comfortable being held.
Yep, that's a big one. Like they're arching their back a lot. That's a big one. Babies that roll over before 4 months. So a lot of times I would hear this and it's like, "Oh, my baby already rolled over at like 1 month." And like that, they're not supposed to have the musculature to be able to do that. That's a sign of spinal cord tension, actually.
Oh,
So
really? No,
yeah,
stay there
it's
for a
just so
second. I had
tight.
no idea. So if your
Yeah,
baby is a month old or before 4 months and they're rolling over, it's not a sign that they're an incredibly advanced baby is what you're telling me.
correct. Yeah, that doesn't
Mm,
mean your baby isn't precious and special,
right.
but it's just a sign that their musculature isn't developed yet at that stage to be able to roll over. So then it's usually a sign of just so much tightness in their back
Mhm.
that they are arched and then they just roll over because they're just so tight. Another reason, or other reasons you'd want to take your baby to a pediatric chiropractor is if they're having digestive issues, so like reflux, spitting up a 10, or constipation, latching issues, that can be a big one. And then
Mm.
also, a lot of times, proper chiropractic care can help prevent helmet in kids. And
Oh,
so,
that's when the baby helmet head is when the baby is lying so much on their back that the head actually starts to get flattened.
right. And so, oftentimes, that can be secondary to a neck motion restriction, where if they're like constantly turned to one side, they're always going to be laying
Mhm.
on that one side, right? So, then we want to
Yeah.
correct the range of motion issue. We want to make sure they can turn to both sides. And then also, we work on their cranial bones, which are, they're not fully formed when they're that age, right? Because they needed to be softer to come out in the birth process.
Right, right.
Pediatric chiropractors are trained to be able to detect where there's lack of motion in that part of the skull and then just help create room. It's super gentle. It's just like
My
if somebody
daughter
was
had
getting a
that
super
done.
light head massage.
Her
Yeah.
She had her soft spot closed up way too soon.
Oh, yeah.
And so there was obviously concern. We had to do the scans. This is my youngest. We had to do the scans and all that jazz. And what she had room inside her brain, but we still took her to the chiropractor, the same one that adjusted her brother when he was 4 months old. And just to kind of work very gently with her skull to kind of make sure that everything was gonna be fine. She's a smart girl now.
Mhm.
Everything did turn out well. So, let's talk a little bit about a C-section baby because
Mhm.
the baby's not coming through the birth canal, but usually it was a difficult if it especially if the C-section was unplanned, there was a difficulty in
Yeah.
the labor, but even through a planned C-section. So, if the baby doesn't have to go to the birth control, why would a baby need chiropractic that was born by C?
Right. It's a great question. So, arguably, based on like my experience of what I'd seen, generally C-section babies need chiropractic more.
Really?
And yes, the reason being is usually, I mean, the doctor, their goal is to get mom and baby out quickly and safely, right?
No.
So, a lot of times, what happens is like they have to pull the baby out by their head. If you're not squeamish, like, go look up a C-section video and like where they're pulling them out by their head. Like there's a lot of traction force that happens
Yeah,
there. And
okay.
that could put a lot of stress in the neck. And like we talked about earlier, the vagus nerve is coming out of the neck. And so there's a lot of neurology. So a lot of that brain body communication, a lot of those symptoms are at the neck level. And that can affect not only how the neck functions, but like digestion and your ability to get into your rest and digest mode state because we're affecting all those nerves, right? Then also a C-section babies, since they don't pass through the birth canal, they're not getting those compressive forces that help form their head shape, like is naturally going to happen with most vaginal births. And then also from an immune system perspective, when babies are born vaginally, they are exposed to
They
the
get the biome.
bacteria,
They get the biome from mama.
right? So they get more microbiome. I would say they get more adaptability
And
from
that's
that
why
immune system wise.
sometimes and I do wanna get to the brain, man, you guys can tell we could just park here all day.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
but by the way, just speaking of the biome, that's why some of the more holistic oriented obstetricians will sometimes take a wipe from the mom's vagina and wipe the baby's mouth who was born C-section to as much as possible get some of that biome in.
Right, you want that. Yeah,
You
so
want
that's a
that
good, like, standard thing to do if a baby is C-section is to expose them to that bacteria because it's gonna help fortify their immune system for their whole life. Like,
in your whole
it's
life. Yep.
it's a massive impact on their ability to to have a strong immune system.
So let's move on just a little bit before we get to the brain, because I'm sure that a lot of moms are going, well, my child has battles ADHD. He or she can't
Mhm,
focus. There's a lot of reasons for that, mom. And there's a lot of reasons why women and men, but women in particular, their brains are a little bit more sensitive to hormonal fluctuations. Um,
mhm,
let's talk a little bit about, let's move to the brain because Dr. Alexis in the show notes will put in a link to a resource. So if you're looking for a chiropractor that does have experience and Dr. has taken certifications to work with children so that you're getting, not every chiropractor wants to. Some chiropractors don't have the experience. So you really want to make sure that you've got a chiropractor who is very comfortable and experienced in working with children and
mhm.
that they're working with. So put that in the show notes. Let's talk a little bit about why we started talking in the first place, and that was chiropractic in the brain and the prefrontal lobe, guys. So I'd like you to explain to people what the prefrontal lobe is
Mhm.
and what they started discovering about the impact of chiropractic on that part of the brain.
Yes, this I think is the coolest thing that we have discovered in more recent years about chiropractic. 'Cause chiropractic's been around since 1895 and has
Right.
a very interesting history. And basically, chiropractors have been demonized because they would claim all these things that they can help with, but then they didn't really have like evidence besides what
Backing.
they saw
Yeah.
in their clinics to back it up. And now we're seeing the science behind why we could see digestion improve with an adjustment. Or, oh, ear infections is another one for kids. Can't believe I
Yeah.
forgot
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. Yeah. Your infections and
So
kids. Yeah.
it's a big one that a chiropractor can help with and prevent the tubes and the antibiotics cycle. And this is how we know. So what we're currently seeing with research is that so first of all, your spinal movements and the ability of your spine to move properly directly affects your brain function, especially the prefrontal cortex. What is the prefrontal cortex? It's basically what we call the seat of your intelligence, or more simply put, it's who you are. It's like it's your personality, it's your executive function, which means like your ability to make decisions for yourself, to plan, all these really important things that a lot of times people who are neurodivergent can struggle with, or people who have like mental health issues can struggle with. Um, and so your prefrontal cortex is integral to who you are as a person and your functioning. What we're learning is spinal function directly influences that. And so what we've seen with adjustments is when a chiropractor detects a very specific part of the spine that is not functioning as well, meaning it's not moving as well, it might be slightly out of
Mhm.
alignment, meaning it's just not in the right position within its joint.
Yeah.
There's muscle firing around it, we know that segment is sending funky information to the brain. And therefore, the brain doesn't have a very accurate perception of what is going on in the body there. So, a chiropractor's job is to be able to specifically detect where there is dysfunction and then
Mhm.
adjust it, which means putting a specific piece of information to the spine through movement, which helps basically send a signal to the brain of where that joint is in space. And so, it's helping to restore proper movement in the spine again. What we've seen in several different studies is when you do that, when you adjust a specific segment, it improves prefrontal cortex activity by 20%, which
That's a
is,
lot.
it's a lot. Yeah, that's really, really clinically significant for people who are experiencing signs of prefrontal cortex dysfunction. What does that look like? A lot of times our prefrontal cortexes can get more shut down, either temporarily or more chronically due to trauma and
Yes.
stress,
Yes.
and pain. And
Mhm.
so what we've learned is if we can help get the prefrontal cortex more online and functioning better, people have less pain. They have better adaptability to stress. They're more likely to be able to move through those traumatic stressors over time. Their personalities turn back on. They make better decisions for themselves. And then also, we see their inflammation tends to go down because those stress pathways are not as upregulated, meaning they're not like going off as often. And
Right.
so
Right.
when the prefrontal cortex is more online, you're more in your rest and digest parasympathetic mode. Your sympathetic fight or flight mode starts to downregulate, meaning less inflammation, better decision making, better hormonal function,
Less
um,
overwhelm. That sense of
less
staring
overwhelm.
at you've got a task list and you're going, "I don't know where to start," and starting at the top of the task list doesn't make sense, the middle doesn't make sense, the end doesn't make sense. Probably better go walk the dog, it's not even on
Mhm.
my task list. And that
Yeah, like brain
is
fog.
right, it's brain fog, it's overwhelm, it shuts down, we're much more likely to shut down, we're much more likely to get irritated when there's really with just the day-to-day things of life and relationships, your child comes in and you interrupts your task. It was so hard to
Yep.
get on task in the first place, and now you're really irritated at the child. So prefrontal cortex, that's the part of your brain that's literally, like, behind your forehead,
Mhm.
and for those who are neurodivergent, ADHD is one form of that, and even in trauma, that area gets literally depressed. I mean, literally, the
Mhm.
size changes, and that's when the function changes, so there's a lot of ways that that can happen. So the reason why it's so important to talk about brain health is because when your brain is healthy, the rest of your body is healthy. It's regulating your emotions better, so it means you're gonna experience joy instead of depression. You're gonna
Yeah.
be much more resilient emotionally. Your personality is gonna be better. You're gonna get along with people better. They're gonna get along with
Mhm.
you people better. You're gonna have more grace for people when they just have foibles like you do, right? But
Mhm.
you're also gonna get that sense of productivity. So then that lack of productivity, that lack of ability to get things done when that need to be done increases
Yeah.
that sense of not just overwhelm, but of waking up like a failure because already you're behind as soon as you wake up and when it gets to be really chronic and really bad. And then that sets its own stuff in motion. So one of the things that chiropractors started to recognize, and now they've got the data, the hard data. You've got what was
Mhm.
interesting, and one of the things I was listening to when they were trying to do the study that you're referencing
Mhm.
is that they tried to create a placebo effect because you wanted to sit there and see the difference between people that were getting adjusted and people that weren't. So they created what they called a sham adjustment. And
Mhm.
so they put the electrodes or whatever it was that they were measuring brain function with, and they put people in a chiropractic adjustment and they touched them so they thought they were getting adjusted, but they weren't really, right?
Mhm.
Still saw an improvement, even a little bit. So it doesn't
Well,
take
it
much,
does.
right?
Yeah, it like
It doesn't
that
take much.
belief that I'm getting better. Mhm.
Yeah, yeah. So there's a little bit and why this is the big deal. So how does someone maybe I'm going to use ADHD as an example, but it could be just even PMS. It could be any kind of reason for brain fog or difficulty concentrating or focus. By the way, guys, there's also allergies can play a role in that. The eye brain communication can play a role in all of those. You can also train your brain to be unfocused with a lot of screen time. So there are multiple factors. But within this lane that we're talking in right now, how does somebody who's getting let's say they're getting regular adjustments, how would you define a regular adjustment? Is that like once a month? Is that once a week? And then real quickly, what kind of changes do your patients report to you?
Yeah, that's a really great question. Regular is going to depend on the chiropractor you go to.
Sure.
And also the exam that they do. So the exam is going to determine how frequently they want to see you. I would say is very normal to expect if you have symptoms and your body's under stress, it is normal to start off at 3 or 2 times a week for, like, a month. Basically, that's because your nervous system your brain is really good at forming patterns and habits, and we need to interrupt it as much as possible to change the nervous system. And so a lot of times they're on, like, these corrective care plans. We have to start off at more frequency. Gonna depend on who you go to. Sometimes people will be like, "Oh, I tried chiropractic, it didn't work." "Well, how often were you going?" And they were like, "Oh, like once a month or 4 times a year or something." That's just not enough. If you work out like once a month versus once a week, you're gonna see a lot more changes once we
Well,
because
and
we're
the
working.
chiropractic cannot you guys cannot do massive adjustments. They're really small adjustments each time, and then the brain, when you talked about like, the muscles will go, "I'm not used to being this way. I wanna go back to
Mhm.
where I was. As dysfunctional it was, I wanna go back."
Yep. Personally, my philosophy is I don't wanna do too much too soon. I would
Right.
rather work with the body, and as the body starts adapting to what I'm doing, then I can introduce more, right? Or like a heavier
Mhm.
force. But you can't just go in there, hammer it away, and expect somebody to be able to adapt to that really well. So
Right.
my what I typically start people off on is 2 or 3 times a week, just depending on how much stress they're under. If there's a greater need for care, then I'll put them at a greater care plan. My goal is to end up seeing them less and less until we get them at a frequency that gives them the quality of life that they want. And so my care plans can be anywhere from 3 months to a year. It really just depends on that
What
person's
they've got going
history.
on.
Yeah,
Right.
what they've got going on. And so I was uncomfortable giving someone a year-long care plan, but I was like, based on what I measured, it's what they need. And it was exactly what they needed. If I had given less care, they would have still been fighting some symptoms just off and on. So a regular chiropractic care is probably more than you think, but it will get you the results you want.
So what kind of things specifically regarding to the brain, because there's a lot of
Mhm.
about chiropractic and immunities. So if you're investing in chiropractic, depending on what's going on with your body, of course, you may find yourself investing less in other forms of care because you don't need them. But when it comes to the brain, what kind of things were you noticing amongst your
Mm,
patients? Are they reporting as far as their
mhm.
mood, stability, depression, brain function?
I love this question. And this is the most fun part of doing care plans is you get to see these changes happen over the course of months because it takes time. People often report like I'm sleeping so much better. My general mood is better.
Mm.
Some people have told me they got to lessen their anxiety meds or were even able to get off of things like that. Not like
Wow.
they'll get off your meds, but like they felt
No.
capable enough to do it and feel like they still had a good
And they
quality.
work with your doctor when you're talking on a lot of these meds. You do have to do that with your doctor. Okay.
Totally. Yeah, that's out of my scope of practice. Some cool things that I'll see is like my colleagues will see is people like quitting a crappy job that they've just been stuck in for a long time because they finally have the bandwidth to be like, I want more for myself. When you're not
Wow.
living in pain and when your brain isn't living in survival mode, then you can actually think about these things that you want and take risks. You can
Yep.
and be like, I'm gonna be fine. They'll like get out of a bad relationship. One thing I love seeing people do is they'll start being like, hey, I'm gonna go like sign up for a Pilates class, or I just started lifting weights again for the first time in 2 years. And they just start making better decisions for themselves, which is part of that executive functioning, right? Once we get that prefrontal cortex back online, they make better decisions and they're not in less pain. So they feel like they have the ability to do this. That's where the chiropractic is life changing. I'm not going to claim that chiropractic is the end all be all, like it's going to fix everything because that's not true really of anything. There's so many components to health, but it can be
Sure.
a powerful tool for rewiring somebody's current state and get them to a place where they can actually have like a quality or strive for the life that they actually want to have for themselves.
Well, how would it affect somebody like with that might have learning issues, especially
Mm,
again, learning issues if you have a chemical exposure, Dr. Doris Rapp back in the '90s, in the olden days when we used phones attached to walls, she did an experiment, and I've got the before and afters of children exposed to chemicals, the basic cleaning chemicals in the
mm.
classroom that was used to clean their desks, and some of these kids would look dyslexic
Ah,
Af chemicals. So, to your point again about it's never there's everybody is looking for that one thing. What's the one thing I need to do? And
mhm,
chiropractic, like anything else, is part of a sustainable, holistic lifestyle because your body has lots of systems, but it's one of the ones that lays down a foundation because you're working with the spine and the central nervous system, which is the
mhm.
communication system. So have parents reported to you, for example, any changes in, say, classroom behavior or learning with their children that are getting chiropractic?
Yeah, that's a great question too. I think the more common things that I'll get is like the kids will just seem to be happier and more outgoing in the sense that, again, they're kind of willing to take more risks. Like when
Mhm.
kids are really bogged down or struggling, like they can feel really self conscious, right? Especially like in a learning situation, if they are kind of being told, like, oh, you're behind, or they feel like they're behind, that's really hard on a kid. And so I feel like
Yeah, it
just
is.
that confidence and seeing that they feel better. There was this one kid I was working with, and he just over time had a lot, his anxiety just started to go down. That's huge for a kid to just be less worried about the world and be able to be a kid and just like worse stuff. And then again, from a brain perspective, I myself have ADHD and then it's like a mild form of dyslexia. And I wonder if I had gotten adjusted as a kid, like how that would have impacted me. But I know how it impacted me as an adult, and it's just allowed me to be able to focus better without as much, intervention in other ways. Just pretty much like declutter the brain in a lot of
Yes.
ways and decrease like the inflammation that's going on there. I think that can just be really profound for kids.
Well, it certainly can, and then the family dynamic. So if you've got a child who is feeling less anxious and less stressed, the entire
Mhm.
family dynamic changes. And then that becomes a loop in the positive
Yes,
direction. People are less stressed out, so then there's just less stress overall. And
that's so
the
true.
thing that I've learned, it was funny when my daughter, when she was in her early teens, so like 13, and when we would take her to get adjusted, she would immediately, as she's being adjusted, start giggling. Right, and the chiropractor, of course, Dr. Corcoran would start giggling back, and it was just like a laugh fest. But it was always a very, very positive thing, and because
Yeah.
your posture's better, I mean, literally, everything is better. And if one of
Yeah.
those foundation practices along with your nutrition, and we're not saying again, no medical intervention, because sometimes that's what you need. There are some things, everything has its limitation. But
Yeah.
it's when we become so dependent on one form that we don't seek the others, that we
Yeah.
really shortchange our bodies and ourselves and our future and what we were called to being. And one of the things we talk a lot about on this podcast is the shalom of God. And the shalom of God deals with every major area of life, relationship, finances, overall well-being, the relationships between you and God, you and your family, you and your neighbors, right?
Mhm.
Spiritual growth, your soul, your mind, your body. And so to me, chiropractic is a piece of that shalom that way, right?
Yep.
And it is something people say, I wish insurance would cover it. We're just going to
Mm.
go here for just a second before I ask
Yeah,
you
that's important.
what you wish people knew. Because this is why the more insurance does, one, the less choice you ultimately have, and
Mhm.
the less people like Dr. Wine and myself can talk about things because now the lobbyists have been brought to bear. That's just the truth of the way the system works. The minute you bring these insurers in, I can guarantee you, you won't see it in your copay, but the overall cost to your wellness care will go up. It will have to.
Mhm. Yeah.
Chiropractors will have to start staffing your physician. I had one physician say that between the insurance staffing and the malpractice, it was like this was back in the early 90s. He was saying it was like $2,000 a day every time he just put the key in the door to open the
Woo.
practice, right? So that's $60,000 a month in overhead for insurance.
Yeah.
You don't that gets passed on. So this
Yes,
is
it
also
does.
about so you just I know families that this is just a part of their budget. The chiropractor is just a part of just like good food,
Yep.
right? It's just a
Yep.
part of how they live. So when it comes to have you seen improvements with people who are battling maybe a mental health issue like deep depression, clinical depression, anxiety, or some of the other mental health issues that can
Mhm.
chiropractic not again, we're not saying we want to be really clear here. We're staying within scope. But whenever you're dealing with a mental health issue or neurodivergence, which means you've got a brain that functions differently than, say, neurotypical. And there's always a spectrum from somebody who's mildly affected to deeply or profoundly affected, which how we're talking about part of the tools in your wellness toolbox to
Mhm.
maximize and optimize what your body can do no matter what you've got going on. Could somebody that's maybe battling even a serious mental health issue, could they possibly see some benefit as part of their overall care?
Oh, yeah. I would say that's a very high possibility. For one, because most people who have like a major mental health issue are in pain.
Yeah.
So from a pain perspective alone, if we can at least just reduce pain, that improves their quality of life, right? It makes life a little more
Well,
hopeful
yeah, it sure does.
for them. Especially like chiropractors work with chronic pain patients a lot. We're not claiming that we're going to cure that. Chiropractors should never claim to be able to cure anything. But it's like if we can at least help them function better, that's profound for their quality of life, right? So, from a pure pain standpoint, if we can reduce that, that's significant. And then again, like if we can help get their nervous system out of that fight or flight mode and out of that like protection, everything's a threat, like my life sucks, like everything's bad. When we are in that mentality, in that mental state, it is
Yeah.
very hard to change that. A lot of times I've had a few patients who are in those more severe situations, right, mentally. And it's like just coming down and laying on the table is like the only thing they can do that day or something, right? And then
Mm.
so at least with chiropractic, you don't have to do anything and you're just there and somebody's like laying their hands on you and that alone can be really healing, right? So if we can reduce pain and then also if we can get them into more of a parasympathetic nervous system, so that healing mode, it opens up more of a world of possibilities for them and can help reduce a lot of the things that severe mental health can bog down. Does that make
Yeah.
sense?
No, no, it does, and I
Yeah.
think that one of the difficulties, if you have a family member who is severely mentally ill, is that it's affects the personality and the relationship so much so that it
Mhm.
becomes the family starts now having to, just by the nature of what's going on, the family dynamics revolve around that individual,
Mhm.
and it just has to, right? Because 'Cause you're in a type of survival. The entire family's in a survival mode. So, what Dr. Wine has been saying is that chiropractic, as a realignment of the body can communicate with itself better. So, it's getting a lot more better information. You all know when you've gotten a wrong phone number, right? The body stops getting the wrong phone number so much and the wrong message, and everything starts functioning better. And the improvements can be really quite dramatic. And they're
Mhm.
dramatic because your body is finally getting what it needs to be you.
Yeah.
So as we wrap up, I want to ask you 2 more questions. One is, what do you wish that people knew about chiropractic that they don't know? And then how can they find you? So let's do the first one. What do you wish people knew about chiropractic that they don't know?
And the main thing on my mind is that it's really safe. I think it got a lot of demonization and propaganda against it a couple decades ago, and
Yeah.
unfortunately, that kept people from trying something that is largely so safe and can help prevent surgeries and
Yeah.
chronic issues that are so expensive. And not just financially, it's like they're expensive emotionally and like familially. And it's safe. Yes, I do hear stories of people going to a chiropractor and getting hurt. And unfortunately, that can happen in like any profession. And but it's largely so rare, especially if you're going to someone who's really well treated. We have the cheapest malpractice insurance payment of any medical provider, which is usually a sign that they're usually not having to pay out that much for malpractice with chiropractors, meaning there's not a lot of risk. Does that mean I haven't heard of people getting injured from chiropractors? No, I've been injured by a chiropractor. And
Oh,
but
wow.
what I've learned is that it was a student.
Let's
But
keep out. Okay.
yeah, but still, it's like I've heard about it and I don't want to invalidate anyone's experiences. But I also want to say you can find an excellent chiropractor who's an amazing fit for you. It can be
Yeah.
totally life changing and very, very safe. And it can prevent so much like loss of health down the line. Just with your back is so important alone. And then your nervous system on top of that is like, extremely important. So if we can keep those two things as healthy as possible through finding a really excellent chiropractor who can help you stay as healthy as possible, like that can be so life changing. So I wish people knew that.
That it's safe. Yeah, I agree with you on that
Hmm.
one, especially if you go to a chiropractor who it's a good fit personally. You can
Hmm.
always ask what's their method of adjustment. So
Yep.
they'll teach you. A good chiropractor will spend time helping
Yeah.
you understand. My favorite chiropractor, I got a 5-minute massage beforehand to basically loosen up muscles.
Mhm.
Or he did the adjustments, and they were small, it wasn't, like, necessarily crawling on you to sometimes there has to be that
Yeah.
position. And then you got my favorite was the roller table.
There's
So
so many different techniques and people
yep,
like if you find the right practitioner like that will customize it to you and is a really good fit for you, that's what I would encourage you to look for.
Absolutely. So how do people find you?
My name is Dr. Alexis Wien, and I'm on Instagram at Dr. Alexis, and then that's spelled Wien. It's German. And then also my website is www.dralexischiropractic.com. Those are very easy ways to find me. If you want to message me, ask me any questions, please feel free to. And then to find a really good chiropractor, I would recommend, especially for kids or pregnant women, look at the
Yeah.
icpa.com and go to their search tool.
Okay, and I'll put that in the show notes as well. I want to thank Dr. Wynn again for being with us. Alexis, it's been a pleasure.
Yeah, thank
Enjoyed meeting you on the pre-interview too, and I love your story and I love your passion for chiropractic and really the possibilities that it opens up for people
yeah.
in wellness. Because one of the things we want to talk about, remember, she's in Salt Lake City, Utah.
Yeah.
Her links will be in the show notes, Dr. Alexis Chiropractic com. So go to her website, check her out, because even busy people who aren't perfect, and I know that that's most of us, can live incredibly healthy lives. You were created to be healthy. It's what God desires for you. He put his wisdom into your body. We just spent a whole episode talking about the communication system in your body. So keep moving forward and claiming your health freedom. Remember to visit my site, womanwize.com, womanwize, WIZE.com. Let's connect on social. Thank you again for joining us
Thank
for this
you.
episode of Divine Healthy Living. Dr. Wynn, has been fantastic. I loved having you. We'll have to have you back again sometime. Maybe we can do a little bit
Yes.
more of a deep dive into
Yeah.
chiropractic for newborns. As a grandma that just had 4 grandbabies, and I didn't have them personally, this should I? But we had 4 new
Yeah. Well,
grandchildren
sure.
this past year.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
I'd love to
it's
be
really
back.
a fun
It
of
was very
mine.
fun today.
Yeah, awesome, and so we're bringing you the Divine Healthy Living podcast, guys. Enjoy living in the shalom of the Lord. Bye now.